The Mustang's engine screamed, coughed, then died with a final desperate hiss. In the middle of a cracked, sun-scorched street, the gleaming vintage red car rolled to a stop, steam curling from under its hood like angry smoke. The sound drew eyes from every porch. A man in a dark tailored suit slammed his door open, glaring at the broken machine like it had betrayed him. Sweat slid down his temple. His name was Mr. Kingston, a billionaire far from home, trapped in a neighborhood he'd probably only seen on news reports. Zuri froze on the sidewalk, clutching the oversized bag of tools hanging from her narrow shoulders. Barefoot, dust on her ankles, she stared at the car as if she'd just spotted a mythical creature. A '67 Mustang, mint body, chrome gleam. Worth more than everything on her street combined. Mr. Kingston yanked the hood open. A cloud of steam puffed out. He coughed, waving it away in disgust. "Useless," he muttered, tapping his watch impatiently. Zuri's heartbeat picked up. Every evening after school, she slipped into the junkyard at the edge of town, working alongside old Uncle Theo to bring dead engines back to life. Cars didn't scare her. People did. She took a step closer, sir. "Looks like she overheated," she called softly. His head snapped toward her. He scanned her up and down. A skinny black girl, probably no older than 12, holding rusty wrenches. He laughed under his breath. "Yeah, sure. Thanks, kid. I'll wait for a real mechanic." The small crowd of neighbors chuckled nervously. Zuri swallowed. She could have walked away. She should have. But something in her refused to back down. She took 2 more steps. Your belt's slipping. And ignition coil's loose. "She won't start again like that," she said, her eyes fixed on the engine, not his judgment. Mr. Kingston's eyebrows lifted. "Oh, and you're some kind of expert?" She dropped her bag with a heavy clank and climbed onto the curb, peering under the hood. "I fix cars all the time," she murmured, already spotting the frayed belt. "You're burning more gas than you're moving." He glanced at his watch again. Sweat darkened his shirt at the collar. Towing would take hours here. He sighed sharply. "Fine, knock yourself out. If you make it worse, you're paying for it," he said with mock politeness. Zuri didn't respond. Her hands moved like someone who had done this 100 times. She wedged a wrench between the brackets, tightened the ignition coil, then leaned her full weight to adjust the belt. Mr. Kingston crossed his arms, watching in detached amusement. Until the moment she slammed the hood down. "Try it now," she said, stepping back. He gave her a doubtful look, but climbed into the driver's seat. He turned the key. The engine roared back to life, smooth, deep, powerful, like a lion waking up. The crowd erupted in whistles and laughs. That little girl just fixed a billionaire's car. Someone shouted. Mr. Kingston blinked, his jaw tightening. For a second, something like respect flickered across his face. Zuri tried not to smile, but pride warmed her chest. He stepped out, frowning at the engine as if refusing to believe it. "How?" She shrugged, wiping grease onto her shorts. It was easy. The heat shimmered between them. He wasn't used to being surprised, especially not by a barefoot girl from a forgotten block. He opened his mouth to say something, maybe to thank her, maybe to patronize her, but then his eyes froze. The sun caught something on her hand, a flash of gold. His expression shifted instantly. Zuri followed his gaze. On her finger rested a gold ring, polished but old, with a crest carved into it. She'd worn it for as long as she could remember. Her mother's ring. Mr. Kingston stepped closer. "Where? Did you get that?" His voice wasn't amused anymore. It was sharp, cold. Zuri instinctively hid her hand behind her back. "It's mine," she said quickly. He reached out as if to grab it, then stopped himself. His eyes narrowed, studying her face. Something dangerous stirred behind his calm exterior. The laughter of the neighbors faded into silence. The engine purred steadily, but the air around them grew tense. Zuri's heart thudded in her chest. Mr. Kingston took out his phone, snapping a picture of the ring with a practiced motion. His smile was gone now. Only suspicion remained. "Interesting," he murmured. Then, louder, "Who gave it to you?" "My grandma," she replied, backing up a step. He stared at her for a long moment. Not at her, but at the ring, like it carried a story only he knew. The sound of the engine hummed between them. Then, without another word, he slid back into the car, slammed the door, and sped off, tires squealing on the broken pavement. Zuri stood in the heat, confused, the crowd dispersing slowly. The roar of the Mustang faded down the road, but his voice echoed in her ears. "Where did you get that?" She looked at the ring again. For the first time, it didn't just feel like a memory. It felt like a question she didn't know how to answer. The gold ring gleamed under the burning sun, and for a heartbeat, everything around Zuri froze. Mr. Kingston's eyes locked onto it with a sharpness that made her chest tighten. His pupils narrowed like a predator spotting something it thought was lost forever. "That ring," he whispered almost to himself. His voice shifted, no longer impatient, no longer amused. It carried weight, history, and suspicion. Zuri's hand trembled as she tried to hide it behind her back. "It's just my grandma's ring," she said quickly, confused by his sudden intensity. His gaze hardened. "No," he snapped. "That's not just a ring. Where did you really get it?" She frowned, backing up. "I told you. My grandma." By now, curious neighbors had gathered closer. A few leaned on their porch rails. Others crossed their arms, whispering. Mr. Kingston stepped forward, his expensive shoes crunching against gravel. "That ring belonged to the Kingston family," he said coldly. "It was stolen years ago." Zuri blinked, not understanding. "I didn't steal anything." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Of course. A little girl from this neighborhood just happens to be wearing a custom-designed Billionaire heirloom." His voice carried loudly, deliberately. Heads turned. Murmurs swelled like a rising wave. Zuri felt her cheeks burn. "I didn't!" She shouted, but it sounded small against his authority. "She's wearing stolen gold," someone whispered. "I knew that family had secrets," another muttered. The ring, which had always felt like a piece of her mother, now felt like a target painted on her skin. Mr. Kingston pulled out his phone, snapping another clear photo of her hand. She flinched at the click. Then, turning slightly away from the crowd, he pressed the phone to his ear and spoke in a low voice. "Yes. I found it. No, I'm looking at it right now. The girl has it. Send me the files." Zuri's stomach knotted. She didn't know who he was calling, but his calm, controlled tone scared her more than his shouting had. "Stop it," she burst out. "It's mine. My mama gave it to me." He turned back sharply. "Your mother?" Zuri froze. The world blurred for a moment. A memory rose like smoke from somewhere deep inside her. She was 5 again. Rain pounded on their tin roof. Her mother knelt down, eyes tired but warm, slipping the heavy gold ring onto her tiny finger. "Zuri," her mother whispered, brushing curls from her face. "Never lose this. No matter what happens. Promise me." "Promise," little Zuri had said. The memory dissolved, replaced by the present, the billionaire's accusing stare, the crowd's judging eyes, the unbearable weight of silence. Her throat tightened. "She gave it to me before she left," Zuri said softly. Mr. Kingston's eyes narrowed. "Your mother left or ran?" The sting of those words made Zuri's chest burn. She clenched her fists, wishing she could disappear. But then, just as suddenly as he had appeared, Mr. Kingston's demeanor shifted. He slipped his phone back into his pocket, turned on his heel, and walked toward his Mustang. "Wait," Zuri called. He didn't answer. He got in, revved the engine, and drove off, leaving a storm of whispers behind him. The neighbors stared, some suspicious, some pitying. A woman shook her head. "That girl's in trouble now." Zuri grabbed her tool bag and ran home, blinking back hot tears. Every step echoed with humiliation. She didn't understand what just happened, but she knew one thing. The ring wasn't just a memory anymore. It was something dangerous. Inside her room, she shut the door and held the ring up to the light. The gold glowed faintly. Her mother's face flashed in her mind again. "What did you get me into, Mama?" she whispered. Outside, the neighborhood returned to its quiet rhythm. But far down the street, as dusk bled into night, an engine purred softly. Too soft to draw attention. A sleek black SUV rolled to a stop near her house. The windows were tinted, hiding the driver's face. Zuri's bedroom light clicked off. Through the darkness, a lone silhouette leaned forward from inside the SUV, watching her window without moving. The street was silent, but the hunt had already begun. Whispers cut through the midnight air like knives. Zuri jolted awake, her heart pounding. Footsteps crunched lightly on the dirt outside her window. Slow, deliberate, as if someone didn't want to be heard but didn't care if they were felt. She sat up, clutching the ring tight in her fist. Moonlight spilled across her room, catching on the gold band and making it gleam against her skin. A shadow passed across the window. She gasped. Someone was out there, watching. "Mama Ruth!" she hissed, slipping out of bed. She crept down the narrow hallway of their creaking house, the wood cold under her bare feet. Her grandmother sat in her worn chair in the living room, dozing with the TV's blue glow painting her face. Zuri shook her gently. "Grandma, someone's outside." Mama Ruth blinked awake, her weathered hands gripping the chair's arms. She listened. The whispers had vanished. Silence hung thick. "Get away from the window," Mama Ruth whispered, eyes narrowing. She reached over, switched off the TV, and the house plunged into darkness. Zuri's fingers curled around the ring even tighter. "Grandma, I need to know. Why does he care so much about this ring? Who did it belong to?" Mama Ruth stiffened. "Zuri, not now." "Yes, now. He accused me of stealing it. People were staring at me like I was a criminal. He took pictures. He called someone. He knew this ring." Zuri's voice cracked, trembling between fear and frustration. Mama Ruth sighed, the sound long and tired, like a secret too heavy to carry anymore. "I hoped this day wouldn't come," she murmured. Zuri crouched beside her chair, eyes wide. "Tell me the truth." For a moment, Mama Ruth looked like she wanted to turn away, but she saw the desperation in Zuri's face, the same eyes as her daughter's, and something inside her softened. She took Zuri's hand gently, turning the ring toward the light seeping through the curtains. "This belonged to your mama," she said finally. "She didn't steal it. She earned it. She worked as a private nurse in that man's house, the Kingstons. She took care of his wife when no one else would." Zuri blinked. "She worked for him." Mama Ruth nodded slowly. "Years ago, before you were born, they paid well. She thought she could build a better life for you. But something happened in that house. Something bad." Zuri leaned in. "What happened?" Mama Ruth's eyes clouded with memory. "One night she came home late, face pale, hands shaking. She said we had to leave. She packed only what she could carry. I tried to ask, but she wouldn't say a word. Just handed me you, kissed your forehead, and put that ring on your finger. Said, 'Keep this safe for her. Promise me.' Then she ran into the storm, and never came back." The silence that followed was heavy. Zuri's stomach knotted. She'd imagined 100 versions of why her mother left. But never this. Never tied to a mansion, a billionaire, and a missing heirloom. Mama Ruth gripped her shoulders firmly. "That ring isn't just jewelry, child. It's a door. And doors like that, once you open them, there's no closing them again. Don't trust rich people like him. They'll smile while they build the cage." Zuri swallowed hard, looking down at the ring as if seeing it for the first time. "A key, a mystery, a danger. I need to know what she found," she whispered. Mama Ruth's grip tightened. "No, baby. What you need is to keep your head down and stay safe. Secrets like theirs don't get uncovered without someone getting hurt." Meanwhile, across town, inside a room filled with glass walls and expensive silence, Mr. Kingston leaned over a sleek table. His lawyer sat stiffly across from him, while 2 security men stood at the door. "She has it," Kingston said, tapping the photo of Zuri's hand on his tablet screen. "My family ring. The one that disappeared the same year that woman worked for us." The lawyer adjusted his glasses. "If this gets out, the inheritance dispute could—" "I know what's at stake," Kingston interrupted, voice sharp. "I won't let a child unravel everything. Find out who she is, where she came from. If she's connected to that night, I want to know how." The room buzzed with quiet tension as security nodded. Back in the dim house, Mama Ruth finally rose from her chair, drawing the curtains tight. "Lock your window, Zuri. Keep the lights low. And for heaven's sake, don't talk to that man again." Zuri nodded, but her mind was a storm. She couldn't stop picturing her mother's trembling hands that night, the way the ring had slid onto her tiny finger, the way Mr. Kingston's eyes had flared when he saw it. She crawled back into bed as the first hint of dawn crept over the horizon. The whispers were gone, but unease lingered in the corners of her room like smoke. When the morning bell rang at school, she tried to shake it off. She was halfway through math when the intercom crackled. "Zuri Matthews," the voice called, calm but echoing through every hallway. "Please report to the office. Zuri Matthews." The classroom went silent. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. Her pencil slipped from her fingers. Men in dark suits were waiting by the office door. The principal's office smelled faintly of lemon polish and nerves. Zuri hesitated at the door, palms damp, heart hammering. The secretary gave her a look, half pity, half curiosity, then opened the door with a soft click. Inside, sunlight poured through the wide windows, illuminating polished wood, framed diplomas. And him. Mr. Kingston stood by the principal's desk like he owned the place, leaning lightly on his carved wooden cane. He wasn't wearing the furious glare from the street anymore. Instead, he wore a smile, measured, warm, too carefully constructed to be real. "Ah, Miss Matthews," he said smoothly. "Please, sit down." Zuri froze for a beat, then perched on the edge of the chair opposite him. The principal, a balding man with tired eyes, looked strangely out of place, like he wasn't sure why he was in his own office. Mr. Kingston tapped the cane lightly against the floor. "I imagine you were surprised to see my men here. Don't worry, you're not in trouble." He chuckled softly, the sound low and calculated. "Quite the opposite." Zuri narrowed her eyes. "Then why am I here?" He leaned forward slightly. "Because I see potential. Bright, raw potential. You're top of your class in science and math. You have a mind for mechanics, do you not?" Her breath caught. "How do you—" "I have ways of knowing things," he said, eyes twinkling as if sharing a secret. "I admire young people with ambition. Which is why—" He slid a sleek folder across the desk toward her. Gold lettering embossed the cover. Kingston Academy of Excellence. Zuri's fingers hovered over it, but didn't touch. "We offer full scholarships to exceptional students," Kingston continued. "World-class education. Labs, workshops, mentors. Graduates go on to build empires. I believe you could be one of them." The room seemed to shrink. She'd spent countless nights lying awake, dreaming of blueprints and engines, of working in real labs instead of fixing old radios in her backyard. She'd never told anyone except Mama Ruth. Her voice came out small. "Why, me?" Kingston's smile didn't falter. "Because talent should never be wasted, Miss Matthews. Because you deserve a chance to shine." But there was something in his eyes, a glint too sharp, too knowing. Her fingers instinctively went to the ring hanging from the chain around her neck, tucked beneath her shirt. She felt like a mouse being offered cheese by a fox. "I need time to think," she murmured. "Of course," Kingston replied smoothly. "Take all the time you need. Just know, opportunities like this don't come often. And when they disappear, they're gone for good." The bell rang faintly outside, pulling her back to reality. She stood slowly, clutching the folder, and walked out of the office in a daze. At home that evening, she set the folder on the table like it was a bomb. Mama Ruth eyed it suspiciously from her chair. "What's that?" "He offered me a scholarship. To some fancy school. Kingston Academy," Zuri said quietly. "Full ride, everything paid for." Mama Ruth's face hardened instantly. "No." "But Grandma." "I said no." Her voice cut like steel. "That man doesn't give without taking twice. You think he's helping you out of kindness? People like him don't lift others. They own them." Zuri's chest tightened. "It's not fair. I work hard. I want a future. You always told me to chase opportunities." Mama Ruth slammed her palm on the table, startling her. "Not his opportunities. That man is poison wrapped in silk." The words hung heavy in the air. Zuri turned away, blinking fast. A scholarship like this could change everything. It was everything she'd dreamed of. But every instinct screamed that it came with strings she couldn't see. That night she lay awake staring at the ceiling, the folder on her desk glowing faintly in the moonlight. The ring against her chest felt heavier than usual. The next morning, she found Mr. Kingston waiting by the school gates. Black car, polished shoes, smile perfectly in place. "Well?" he asked, voice smooth as glass. Zuri took a deep breath. "No," his eyebrows lifted just a fraction. "No, I don't trust you," she said, surprising herself with the strength in her voice. "I'm not accepting." For a heartbeat, silence. Then Kingston's smile changed, not gone, but thinned. The kindness drained away, leaving something cold and razor-sharp underneath. "Of course," he said softly. "It's your choice." She walked past him without looking back, her pulse racing. Behind her, the garage had always been Zuri's safe place. Voice low, the scent of motor oil and rust, the scattered tools, the familiar hum of half-fixed engines. The aide nodded once, it was the one corner of the world that made sense. Zuri didn't hear the words. But today, something was wrong the moment she stepped inside. Like the calm before Uncle a storm. Theo didn't greet her with his usual booming laugh. He stood hunched over the workbench, wiping the same rag across his hands over and over, like he was trying to scrub away guilt. "Hey, Theo," Zuri said carefully, setting her backpack down. "You okay?" He flinched slightly at her voice, then forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, kid, yeah, just busy." Her gaze narrowed. "You're working on the Mustang transmission." He nodded too quickly. "Uh-huh, yep, gotta keep the lights on, you know how it is." Zuri tilted her head. She knew Theo like family. His tells were obvious. He only rambled when he was hiding something. She shrugged off the unease and moved toward her usual corner. "Mind if I work on the alternator project?" "Actually," his voice cracked. "Maybe not today, Zuri." She stopped, slowly turned. "Why not?" Before he could answer, the faint rumble of engines echoed from outside. Deep, powerful, not the sound of neighbors' beat-up pickups. Her stomach knotted. Theo avoided her eyes completely. Through the grimy window she saw them. 2 black SUVs pulling up across the street, engines idling. The same kind she'd seen outside her house days ago. "Theo." Her voice trembled. "What did you do?" He dropped the rag like it burned him. "I didn't have a choice, Zuri. Kingston's men came this morning. They said they'd shut me down. Take everything. I'm in debt up to my neck. This garage," her chest constricted. "So you sold me out?" His face twisted with shame. "I'm sorry, kid. They promised they wouldn't hurt you, just talk. Maybe it's not as bad as you think." Footsteps pounded outside. Doors opened. Zuri's instincts screamed, "Run!" She bolted toward the back exit just as 2 men in suits burst through the front, their eyes locking on her. "There she is!" one shouted. She sprinted through the narrow corridor of the garage, heart hammering. Behind her, boots thundered against concrete. Theo yelled something she couldn't make out. The back door was chained shut. Theo must have done it earlier. Her eyes darted around. A rusty side ladder led up to the storage loft. She climbed like her life depended on it, because it did. One man lunged for her ankle. She kicked hard, sending him stumbling back. At the top, she grabbed a loose wrench and hurled it at the fluorescent light above them. It shattered, plunging the garage into chaos and flickering sparks. She leapt down the other side, landing hard but steady, then slipped out through a cracked window into the alley. The alley was a maze of narrow paths and broken fences. Shadows stretched long under the setting sun. "Split up!" A man barked behind her. She darted left, vaulting over trash bins, cutting through gaps only a small frame like hers could manage. Years of running errands through this neighborhood gave her the advantage. She knew every twist and dead end. But they were faster, stronger, closing in. Her lungs burned. Her mind raced. She needed more than speed. She needed brains, and then she saw it. An old rust-colored sedan abandoned behind a mechanic's shop. Windows cracked, tires deflated but not destroyed. She yanked the driver's door. Unlocked. Inside, the ignition dangled loosely. She grinned despite the fear. Let's see if those junkyard nights paid off. Her fingers flew, twisting wires, sparking connections, bypassing circuits. One of the men rounded the corner just as the engine coughed to life. "Hey!" She slammed the pedal. The car lurched forward, tires screeching. The man dove out of the way. Out on the main road, she swerved between traffic, heart in her throat. The SUV headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. They were chasing her, but their bulk made it hard to maneuver through the crowded evening streets. Zuri cut into a tight side street, then another, zigzagging like a maze. She used everything she knew: shortcuts, hidden turns, blind corners. She finally slid the car behind a shuttered laundromat. Engine off, heart pounding, silence. She waited, barely breathing, until the sound of engines faded. Only then did she slump forward, forehead against the steering wheel. Her hands shook violently. Theo's face flashed in her mind. The man who taught her how to change her first tire, who gave her leftover sandwiches when money was tight. He had betrayed her. A single hot tear slid down her cheek. Hours later, when she finally crept back home through the shadows, exhaustion had settled deep into her bones. She pushed the front door closed behind her, ready to collapse, when she noticed something on the floor. An envelope. No stamp, no name. Just slipped under the door. Her pulse quickened as she tore it open. A single note inside, scrawled in uneven handwriting. "She's alive. The ring is the key. Meet me tomorrow." M. Her breath caught. She looked out the window into the dark street. No one was there, but someone had been. The train station loomed like a skeleton against the pale dawn sky. Broken windows, rusted tracks, and weeds pushing through cracked concrete made it look forgotten by the world, which was exactly why Zuri had chosen it. She moved silently, her worn sneakers crunching over gravel, clutching the ring tight in her fist. Her breath puffed white in the cool morning air. Every shadow felt alive. Every sound echoed too loud. "This is stupid," she muttered to herself. "You should have told Grandma." But something inside pushed her forward. The note. She's alive. She stepped into the cavernous main hall where faded benches sat like ghosts of travelers past. That's when she heard it, the faint scrape of a shoe against the floor. "Zuri Matthews?" A deep voice called softly from the shadows. Her heart lurched. "Who's there?" A tall, broad-shouldered man emerged from behind a column. He wore a worn leather jacket, his face partly hidden under a cap, but his eyes were sharp and watchful. "Name's Malcolm," he said. "I used to work security at Kingston's estate." She didn't move closer. "You're the one who left the note." He nodded once. "We don't have much time. You need to know the truth about that ring and your mother." The mention of her mother made the world narrow to just his voice. "What do you know?" she demanded. Malcolm glanced around nervously before motioning her to follow. They slipped into a small maintenance room, lit only by the light leaking through broken panels. He spoke in a low, urgent tone. "Years ago, your mother worked as a private nurse in the Kingston mansion. But she was smart, real smart. She saw things she wasn't supposed to. Hidden rooms, locked filing cabinets, offshore accounts. She stumbled onto something massive, a financial cover-up involving the Kingston family fortune. Billions." Zuri's brow furrowed. "What does that have to do with the ring?" He pointed at the gold band still on her finger. "That's not just jewelry. Kingston's father had that ring custom-made. Inside, there's a micro-engraving, a cipher. Your mother discovered it holds access codes to a hidden vault. The kind of thing that could bring the entire Kingston empire crashing down." Zuri stared at the ring, stunned. All these years it had been nothing more than a precious reminder of her mom. She never imagined it could be this. When she tried to expose them, Malcolm continued, she vanished overnight. Kingston told the press she ran off. But some of us on the inside knew better. I saw her the night she disappeared. She was terrified, but determined. She left that ring behind on purpose, so one day someone could finish what she started. Zuri's chest tightened. Her throat burned. "You're saying my mom might still be alive?" Malcolm's eyes softened for the first time. "I believe so. There were rumors, whispers she was being kept somewhere quiet, out of sight. A rush of hope surged through Zuri, fragile but fierce. All the nights she lay awake wondering what happened to her mother. Maybe, just maybe, the answer wasn't a grave, but a locked door waiting to be opened. But that hope was quickly shadowed by fear. "Kingston's been after the ring all this time," she whispered. Malcolm nodded grimly. "He'll do anything to get it back. You've seen that already. The scholarship offer, the men chasing you. He wants that code before someone else can use it to ruin him." Zuri clenched her fist around the ring. "Then we have to find her. We have to expose him." Malcolm gave a short, proud smile. "You've got fire, kid. Just like your mom." Then, the distant wail of sirens sliced through the quiet. Both their heads snapped up. Malcolm cursed under his breath. "They found us." Zuri's heart raced. "How? Doesn't matter. We have to move." He grabbed her arm and pulled her toward a side exit. The sirens grew louder, joined by the growl of engines outside. Through a crack in the wall, she saw them. Black SUVs surrounding the station, men spilling out, armed and moving fast. Panic flared. "We're trapped!" "No," Malcolm hissed. "Follow me." They darted down a dark service hallway, footsteps pounding behind them. The old station echoed with every sound. Zuri's lungs burned as they pushed through a rusted door that led to the tracks. "Run!" Malcolm shoved her forward. "Get out through the tunnel." "I'll hold them off. I'm not leaving you," she cried. He gave her a hard look. "Your mother risked everything to protect that ring. Don't waste it. Run." Before she could respond, bang! A gunshot cracked through the air. Zuri screamed. The echo of the shot hung in the tunnel like a warning. The city roared to life around her as Zuri sprinted through the maze of early morning streets. Horns blared, vendors shouted, and Kingston's black SUVs sliced through traffic like predators on the hunt. Her breath came in sharp bursts. Her legs screamed, but she didn't stop. Behind her, the screech of tires drew closer. She darted into a narrow alley between two apartment blocks, leapt over a chain-link fence, and disappeared into the cluttered backyards. "Spread out," a man's voice shouted. She crouched behind a trash bin, pressing a hand over her pounding heart. Malcolm's last words echoed in her ears. "Your mother risked everything to protect that ring. Don't waste it." Zuri slipped the ring off her finger and studied it through trembling hands. In the chaos before the sirens, Malcolm had shown her a trick, pressing a tiny ridge on the inner band while holding it up to light. She found the ridge now, clicked it, and tilted the ring toward a sliver of sunlight cutting through the alley. A pattern appeared. Tiny numbers engraved like a secret message. 3749 Dignen, 122.14 E6W coordinates. Her pulse quickened. She didn't know exactly what they pointed to, but instinct told her it wasn't random. Her mother had built something. Maybe a safe house, maybe a hiding place. And now Zuri had the key. But first, she needed proof. Something undeniable that Kingston couldn't bury. And there was only one place that held that kind of evidence: his mansion. Hours later, after losing the SUVs in the industrial district and hitching a ride on the back of a produce truck, Zuri stood at the edge of the Kingston estate. The mansion loomed behind iron gates, pristine gardens glowing under the midday sun. It was a fortress, but one she'd studied from afar as a mechanic, fascinated by the sleek cars that passed through. She slipped through a broken service grate near the rear wall. The tunnel was damp, cobwebbed, but it led straight to the old wine cellar door. She'd overheard Mr. Kingston bragging about it once to his chauffeur. The cellar's older than the house itself. Inside, she crept through dimly lit hallways, ducking behind marble columns as house staff moved about. Her hands were slick with sweat. One wrong step, and it was over. She found the study exactly where she'd seen it in a tabloid photo once. Second floor, west wing, behind a pair of oak doors. The room smelled of leather and money. A massive portrait of Kingston's father hung over the fireplace, eyes watching like a judge. She slid behind his mahogany desk and woke the computer. Password protected. But Zuri had grown up hot-wiring cars and bypassing security locks for fun. 5 minutes later, she was in. Her eyes widened at the folders she found. Encrypted files, offshore account lists, legal threats. But one tab stood out: clinic footage. She clicked it. Grainy black and white video filled the screen. A woman sat in a sterile room, wearing a hospital gown, her hair tied back. Even after all these years, Zuri recognized the tilt of her chin, the softness in her eyes. "Mom," she whispered. Her mother was alive. The footage timestamp showed just days ago. The location code in the corner matched the coordinates from the ring. Tears blurred her vision, but she didn't have time to cry. A floorboard creaked behind her. "Well," a cold voice drawled, "I was wondering how long it would take you." Zuri spun around. Mr. Kingston stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 guards. His tailored suit was immaculate, his cane tapping lightly against the floor as he entered. She straightened her spine. "You knew," she said, voice shaking. "You knew she was alive." Kingston's smile was razor-sharp. "Of course I did. She was a problem I couldn't let roam free. She found things she shouldn't have. But I'm not a monster. I gave her a quiet place to disappear. For everyone's sake. You silenced her to protect yourself," Zuri spat. He stepped closer, eyes glinting with arrogance. "To protect my family's legacy. You don't understand the world you're meddling with, girl. That ring doesn't belong to you. It never did. It belonged to my mother," she snapped. "And now it belongs to me." His smile vanished. "You've caused quite enough trouble." Before she could react, the guards grabbed her. She kicked and struggled, but their grip was iron. "Put her in the cellar," Kingston ordered. "Take the ring. Dispose of the girl tonight." The words hit like ice water. Dispose. She screamed, twisting, fighting with everything she had, but they dragged her down the stairs into the cold, damp wine cellar. The door slammed shut behind her, the lock clicking like a final sentence. Zuri stumbled in the darkness, heart thundering. But even as fear tightened its grip, something else burned brighter. Rage. He'd taken her mother. He'd taken everything. Not anymore. Darkness pressed in from all sides. The air in the wine cellar was damp, heavy with the smell of mildew and old wood. Zuri sat against the stone wall, knees pulled to her chest, shaking. Not from cold, but from the crushing weight of what she'd heard. Dispose of the girl tonight. Her own heartbeat pounded in her ears. But just as panic threatened to swallow her whole, her eyes caught a faint glimmer in the corner, a rusted metal panel half buried behind a stack of dusty wine crates. She crawled toward it, fingers trembling. It was an old maintenance access for the mansion's electrical grid. Years of tinkering with junkyard scraps had trained her eyes to see possibilities where others saw dead ends. "Come on," she whispered, prying it open with a loose nail she'd found on the floor. Inside was a tangle of ancient wires and a manual circuit switch. Her mind clicked into gear. If she crossed the live feed with the backup generator, she could trigger a house-wide blackout, and in the chaos, she'd run. She ripped off the shoelace from her sneaker, stripped the wires with her teeth, and twisted them together. Sparks flew. A sharp pop echoed through the cellar. Upstairs, the lights died. Alarms wailed. Zuri grinned. "Got you." She slipped through a narrow vent behind the old wine racks. It scraped her arms, bruised her ribs, but it led to the back garden. By the time Kingston's men rushed to check the cellar, she was already gone, sprinting barefoot across the manicured lawn under the pale moon. The garage doors yawned open as emergency backup lights flickered weakly. And there it was, the gleaming red Mustang she'd fixed weeks ago. The same car that had brought Kingston into her world. Her chest rose and fell. "Let's see if you remember me." She slid into the driver's seat, hands moving instinctively across the dashboard. She'd rebuilt this engine with her own hands. Every bolt and belt was hers. The ignition turned and the Mustang roared to life, louder, angrier than ever. The sound ripped through the night like a war cry. Men shouted behind her. Flashlights cut through the dark. Zuri slammed the pedal. The car shot forward, blasting through the gates, leaving Kingston's guards stumbling in her exhaust. The chase exploded through the sleeping city. Kingston's convoy of black SUVs fanned out behind her like wolves. She weaved through narrow streets, sparks flying as the Mustang's tires kissed the pavement. "Block her in," a voice barked through their radios, but Zuri wasn't just driving. She was thinking. She remembered Malcolm's words. She remembered every map of the industrial zone she'd studied for fun. She led them toward the old steel mill, a maze of broken pipelines and narrow bridges, perfect terrain for someone who understood machines better than men. She braked hard at a fork, letting the lead SUV overshoot. Then she swerved down a side ramp and cut a sharp U-turn beneath a crumbling overpass. They followed. Big mistake. She hit a switch she'd rigged moments earlier, dropping a chain of loose barrels she'd knocked into position. The SUVs plowed into them, metal screeching, engines stalling. One by one, she picked them off, slipping through roots they couldn't fit, luring them onto oil-slicked concrete, frying one vehicle's electronics with a timed power surge from a utility box she'd rewired mid-chase. By the time she burst back onto the main street, the convoy was a wreck of smoking steel and flashing hazard lights. But Kingston wasn't done. His personal car, a black armored sedan, cornered her at the steelyard gates. He stepped out, cane in hand, fury twisting his face. "You think you've won?" he snarled. "You're a child playing with fire." Zuri stepped out of the Mustang, ring gleaming in the moonlight. "No, I'm the mechanic who fixed the engine you broke." Behind her, the mansion's security network, still partially active after her blackout, was connected to her phone through Malcolm's earlier hack. She'd recorded every word Kingston had said in the cellar. With one tap, the live feed broadcast to local news outlets. Kingston's voice boomed through the steelyard speakers and echoed across the city. "She was a problem I couldn't let roam free. I gave her a quiet place to disappear. For everyone's sake." The sound was undeniable. Within minutes, sirens pierced the night air. Dozens of police cars swarmed the scene. Officers surrounded Kingston, guns raised. He tried to run. They tackled him to the ground. Zuri stood frozen, chest heaving, as blue and red lights painted the sky. Days later, Zuri walked down the corridor of the remote clinic. Her hands shook, not from fear this time, but from overwhelming hope. She pushed open the door. Her mother sat by the window, sunlight soft on her face. "Mom?" Zuri whispered. Her mother turned, eyes widening. Then tears. Then arms. Zuri collapsed into her embrace, sobbing into the warmth she thought she'd lost forever. Weeks passed. The ring's code unlocked a hidden fortune. But instead of keeping it, Zuri donated most to rebuild the neighborhood, fixing homes, schools, the garage. And when the elite academy offered her a scholarship again, this time she accepted, not as Kingston's pawn, but on her terms. The red Mustang purred as she drove it down her street, wind in her hair, the neighborhood cheering her on. She glanced at the ring on her finger. It glowed faintly, a new engraving shimmering in the light. "Freedom." Narrator's voice rose gently over the engine's hum. Never underestimate the power of one determined heart. Share this story to inspire others.